Right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this board meeting of Ebbsfleet Development Corporation. We are recording this, so this will be available on our website after the meeting. Thank you for joining us. We do not have any members of the public with us today, but you are very welcome to attend any of our board meetings. So please pop along if you'd like to be here in person. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Lucy Wilkins, who's here from our sponsor department, Levelling Up Housing and Communities. Great to see you here, Lucy. I'm going to start with any apologies for absence. Had a late breaking one from John Burden. Anything else? No, we are expecting Councillor Kine to attend, so hopefully we'll see him soon. Okay, Councillor Burden has a very good attendance record. It's just been called away on something else. Any declarations of interest other than the standard declarations we have for our members of the planning committee? Yes,
I have one, Simon. And that is, in my role as a barrister, I have provided legal advice to Homes England. It relates to a site in a different region.
Okay, good. All right. All's prudent to be.
I have got a previous declaration of national highways, but national highways is mentioned.
Okay.
That's a joke.
Good. All right. Thank you for that, Neil and Simon. Always best to be on the side of caution with declarations of interest. So thank you. Then we have our Part 1 minutes of our board meeting on the 31st of January 2024, which are in front of us. Very thorough, as always. Does anyone have any comments on those? Are they a true and fair record of the meeting? Are they approved?
Yes.
Great. All right. Good. Thank you very much for that. Then, is there anything in terms of actions that you'd like to draw our attention to?
Only the fact that they're all closed, Chair. So I think it's probably the first time that that's been the case, but yeah, so there's nothing open.
Right. Somewhat teed you up for that one. Well done.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a few open ones up in the 3 hours' time. So
good. And then we have our forward look for our board meeting dates and what we'll be taking part in those as well. That then brings us on to the first substantive piece of business of the day. That is the Chief Executive's Part 1 strategic report. Ian, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take it as read. There's a number of items covered in the paper, so I'm very happy to take questions on that. Just to only add one thing, because with our board cycle that's been agreed, the finance papers coming quarterly, an update on that. But given that we're very close now to the end of the year, I just wanted to tell members that the capital outcome spend this year, we reported 7.1 in January. So our current forecast is for that to be around 5.5 million. So it's down again on the last forecast we provided. Main reason for that is a bit of underspend at Ebbsfleet Central, but primarily we had hoped that we would be in contract for the new community facilities at Ebbsfleet Green, where we're, as board will recall, proposing to provide some grant to enhance those facilities. We had hoped to be in contract by the end of March. We now won't be, but we are working very diligently with Red Row to complete those agreements before the end of April. So, but it won't fall within this current financial year, unfortunately.
Great. Thank you, Ian. Are there any comments, board, on this update, Part 1 update? Well, perhaps if I can just minute our thanks to Housing and Planning Minister Lee Rowley, who came here to, as part of the celebration we had for our 4,000th home. I'd like to also thank Eddie, our resident there, with his partner, Rachel, I think it was. She wasn't around, who did 2 lots of publicity for us. So we're very grateful. Thank you, Eddie. He's a local actor. We wish him all the best in his career. And I was just wondering, Neil, if I could just ask you to perhaps comment on the changes through the Act now of the compulsory purchase regime and the enhanced powers that might be available to the Development Corporation, even though we don't envisage using those at the moment. But just so there is an understanding. Yeah.
Yes. The changes, I think, will come in April. but I have to check the commencement provisions. I think one of the most significant changes is the way in which land will be valued if it has hope value or development value. And although there's been quite a lot of publicity about that, I think that its application will actually be quite restricted.
Mm.
And the reason for that is that it only applies if you have a public authority who is going to acquire land and commits to using it for certain purposes, including providing affordable housing.
Mm.
And then that can be, and that isn't a given. They put that forward as a proposal, it's then examined. So I'm not sure how for Ebbsfleet it's going to, it could help us if we had a scheme of our own, which was below market value, the outcome, that we pay less for acquiring the land.
Mm.
I think that's the main change. And there are other changes to certificates of appropriate alternative development. So when you apply to the planning authority and ask them, we would have got planning permission for this, that, or the other, and that they simplify the process and reduce the cost to authorities, which I think are good. That's not a full review of the Act, but that's on the spot. That's my answer to it.
Yeah, good. Just putting you through your paces there. Giving you a platform to show how you know your place. All right, good. So look, thank you. I thought it was just worth covering off on that. All right, there is nothing to be approving there. That's for information. So Ian, thank you very much for that indeed. Then Caroline, can we come on to the communications and marketing report?
Everyone, I'll take the paper as read and just walk you through highlights. As Simon's touched upon, we celebrated the 4,000th home last month. In February, Eddie, the resident, was an absolute star. He will in fact be featuring on our next edition of Ebbsfleet Living, which is very exciting and due to be released in April. We also had the Housing Minister down here in Ebbsfleet for a site visit. We saw some very positive reception across social media. With regards to kind of day-to-day running, we're continuing to utilise our newsletter, our digital newsletter, to engage with local house builders and encourage them to help support social value in Ebbsfleet, particularly encouraging them to sign up to Match My Project and support a number of initiatives across Ebbsfleet. So last month, this month, we've seen a continued increase in newsletter sign-ups. We are continuing to form the pilot project arm of our sustainability toolkit. I'm sure you'll remember at the last board meeting that we mentioned that we are putting together a sustainability marketing toolkit, which will empower us internally to embed positive, sustainable messaging across all of our projects. An arm of this commission was to deliver a pilot project with schools. So we're working with the local schools in the community and Better Points, which is the active travel app. And we're putting together a fun summer term competition for schools to switch the school drop off and pick up from private transport to active travel, with some really fun incentives for the school to get on board and for them to work collectively as a school community to record the most active travel within the Better Points app, and then being with the chance to win some exciting resources for their school. So that takes place in the summer term. We'll then be monitoring and evaluating it throughout the summer while we're on holiday, and we'll bring it back in September with a kind of a whistle-stop tour of the toolkit and the pilot and our learnings from that. But that is all looking like it's going to be a really exciting summer for students in Ebbsfleet. A couple of actions that we closed that I took away from the last meeting was to confirm the demographic of the digital newsletter sign-up. I can confirm it is very predictable, but positive nonetheless. Top audiences are from Gravesham and London, and then we've got Dartford as well. We did have a sneaky IP from Amsterdam. I can't pretend to explain like I know what that's for. It could be someone reading the newsletter from Amsterdam, or it could just be someone with a slightly dodgy IP address. But it's all very positive in the context of the people that we're expecting to sign up and want to read the newsletter are very much doing that. You also asked as an action how we're promoting the resident satisfaction survey findings. Since our last board meeting, we have put together a resource for sales and marketing suites for the developers within Ebbsfleet to provide to prospective and new residents, telling the story about what makes Ebbsfleet a great place to live, using the impacts and the stats from the residents' satisfaction survey. And then we have also commissioned a fantastic local filmmaker who's worked with us on a number of projects to put together a short video bringing the impact report to life, which will go out across social media and will be a really good asset for the drop-in surgeries, for the welcome screen, anything and everything, and that will be ready to go early next month. That's it. Any questions?
Board? Very comprehensive. Yes.
Just on the fast track, which we're now the interim fast track service down through Whitecliff, which excitingly is going to be beginning this summer. I note the sort of complexities around the new fast track provider, which you put in the report here. But I would have thought, leaving that aside, we would want to get out some positive communications to residents about that as soon as practical, in terms to start building interest around that and starting to try to inform residents, travel planning and options. That's the earliest opportunity.
So Ian's going to jump in if I speak out of turn at any point, but we've been working with various partners with the timeline of fast track delivery and the new contract being provided by Go Ahead, which is happening in November. The ambition to bring forward an interim service has been part of these working groups for some time now, and the ambition was always to bring in and package the communications in a way that kind of answered those two questions at once. So provided residents with an understanding of what's coming in November with the new contract and our long-term ambitions around transport, but also package it with being able to say, this is an interim service coming to you in the summer as well. The complexities which I touched upon are now kind of forcing us to reconsider whether we proceed with providing communications to residents solely focusing on November, which we know is coming and in what form, so that residents are provided with that level of certainty and reassurance that fast track is coming. But what we didn't want to do at the last kind of working groups we had was confuse the messaging when the kind of interim service was still very much an option. So it's just a consideration that we're having to take into effect with balancing the lack of certainty around what that interim service looks like at this moment in time, or if we proceed just with going ahead for the November service.
That's the thing. We've been talking about this quite a bit because we are very keen to get that messaging out for the reasons you've said, but there's still a lack of 100% certainty about the interim service. And I certainly feel if we go out, it doesn't happen when we say it's going to happen, or it's the regularity is not when you can't get those benefits of the travel plan. So Paul is working very closely with KCC officers to nail that down, so that when we do communicate, we're pretty sure.
Yeah, look,
it's going to happen.
Yeah, thanks, Ian.
And what the form is going to say.
Question.
Okay.
I think my observation would be there's been very little negative criticism around what we do from our local community that's come on my radar, but fast track and when that service is going to start has been the thing. So I do think we need to be cautious so we don't taint the permanent launch with a misfire on the temporary solution. So, but when we think we're absolutely solid on the temporary, go out. But I'd be, because I think we want this to be a success when it's launched and when it starts, because it is very important to the residents, and we're behind the timeline on it, frankly. Is that fair? Yeah. Okay, but it's a very good question. All right. Is there anything else on the communication update which is for information? No? Great. Caroline, thanks for the hard work. Yeah. All right, that is that. Then we are coming on to Mark, planning, design and delivery.
Thank you, Simon. So yeah, the usual update.
Jeremy, great to see you.
Thank you. Sorry for being late. I was coming on fast track. I'm only joking. I'm only joking.
You'll always be on time for
That was a
November.
joke.
Yeah.
Thank you, Simon. The usual update. From me. So development sites is outlined in section 1. I think I've sort of reported back in previous meetings that various applications were sort of stalled or paused over the last few months. It sort of feels that everything sort of come to life at exactly the same time, and a whole host of other things that have been coming in as well. So having an awful lot of discussions across multiple sites, obviously different developers, different types of applications. So yeah, an awful lot going on at the moment. In terms of some key things, so Ebbsfleet Central East is at a reconsultation, and the application from EDC was so on the Northfleet Embankment East sites. The consultation on that finished yesterday. The major urban park south came in this sort of month, 6-week period. So that's the section between Fast Track and the lakes in Eastern Croydon. So quite a significant part of the sort of the strategic open space across the area. And Henry Camland are also at a consultation at the moment on the community hub, the Alcaton hub. So they're carrying out that in advance of submission, which should hopefully be next month. Housing delivery and the dashboard in section 2. So we're ending the year at 680 for completion. So that's obviously more than the business plan number that we discussed in previous board meetings. We are expecting a relatively strong start to the year based upon the forecasting. The number that we report in May should be a pretty good start. A lot of the completions are coming from existing sites that board members would be familiar with. The new development that we're expecting to kick off soon is Alcaton 5B, which is a section within the sort of the western side of Alcaton. So that's from Chartway. Committee update section 3. You can see there's been quite a few meetings of the committee and a fair few still to come. Tonight we're talking around the sustainability design assessment tool. So that's at 5 o'clock, and we have got a meeting planned for April to report with Rocherville Primary School. There's a bit of an update in terms of recruitment on the committee members. 3.6 and 3.7. So unfortunately, the independent member process was unsuccessful, and the KCC nominee has declined the offer. So we're in discussions with the public appointments team at DLUC to kick off the independent member process again, and in liaison with KCC officers about getting a new nominee in from there. And 4.3. I just mentioned around the Northfleet Harbourside application. We did submit our comments on that yesterday. We didn't provide any further comments based upon what we have provided previously, so they were submitted to question yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. The nominee declined to accept. Anyway, dealing with your group is never easy. So
No comment, Jim.
yeah, I'm familiar with such things. Right.
Sorry.
Yes, Neil.
So on that issue, the planning committee is got capable members, 3 of us who are here, and representatives from Gravesham and Dartford at the moment. But we will miss the independent voices until they're appointed. Penny Marsh has been a very effective member. She lives in the community and leads a community organisation. So she has been really good to have her as a member. So this is for you, but also as Lucy's here from the department. When I think it would be good as far as the planning committee are concerned if once we get a new nominee from the Kent County Council, that any approvals can be given as soon as possible, and that we can get through the independent member selection process as quickly as we can, because it gives hopefully balance and diversity of views to our committee, which is helpful.
Can I just ask, Penny, can she not be reappointed for a further term?
We've been told that she can't.
The terms of reference say that there can be a maximum of three-year terms, and Penny would be at the.
Okay.
Which is
Decent.
because she is a real stalwart of the committee and of the community, and serves on other Ebbsfleet on the
Indeed.
community trust. So we look forward to welcoming new members when they're appointed.
Okay, good. Is there anything in our general communication that we can do to encourage people to apply in the community?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think in that, although it's not strictly within our terms of reference, when we had two independent members, we had Penny, who was community views, and then we had Chris Hall, who was a qualified town planner who brought us a commercial town planning perspective, and that gave us a range of views. And I would hope that we can match that again. They won't be the same people, they'll have different experiences, but it really helped us having those views.
Okay, thank you. Valerie, can I bring you in?
Yes, I thought you just had was one that I also thought when reading the papers, because something like International Women's Day, for example, is a great venue, a great opportunity to stand up and say, gosh, have you ever thought of becoming an independent planning member and so on? And we have so many of these types of events. The sort of people that come tend to be engaged in the community, and we will have the attributes
Absolutely.
participate.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy.
Well, my point was a pragmatic one, Chairman, which is that it's bizarre when you have an independent person, a woman of great experience and skill, who is effectively then precluded from standing again because of the terms of reference. Now, I understand why it's sometimes helpful to have a terms of reference that says where you can't go on, because often these things become a self-fulfilling tight body of people who like to carry on. But when there is a widespread acclamation about someone's talents and abilities from outside, it does seem a real shame to me that we're about to lose the talents of a woman who is so engaged with the community. And I'm wondering whether it's the lesser of two evils for us to actually try to seek to amend the terms of reference.
You make a good point there, Jeremy. There clearly we could look to amend the terms of reference. So it was at the discretion of the chair of the planning committee to extend beyond 9 years.
Well, if I say so, I'd make it slightly different. It probably is an extension. I think discretion is one of those things where a degree of insider can happen. I would suggest if you're going to extend it, it ought to come back to the full board, because it's a big thing to extend it. Not make it a small thing, make it a really big thing. So it's very transparent what we're doing, make it very clear that we'll also be advertising it, and there'll be an opportunity for other people to stand. But at the same time, to make it clear we would not preclude someone who's already standing on the basis of that. And if they were to end up coming through that selection process, then we would make a big decision to effectively change the. So it's a level playing field. Everybody can come in, but we shouldn't be precluding somebody.
All right, Ian.
I just wanted to check, because I can't remember who approves the terms of reference, Mark.
I actually had that exact thought after driving to work the other day. There was an option there.
It's easy for you to say that now, isn't it?
It is obviously. The board agreed the terms of reference for planning committee, but the selection either a new contract for Penny from October, either as part of a wider process or as a standalone decision, there still needs to then Secretary of State approval. So we would need to go through that process. But there's a slight tweak I need to make on the terms of reference anyway. I think around our expectation around the level of in-person activity, because I don't think it's quite clear. So I was going to do a review of the terms of reference anyway for next month. So I will review that.
I'm all for not having jobs for life, but the truth is that if we make a significantly big thing of it and it has to go through a different big process, I see no harm in it.
Yeah. So I'll bring something back next in May.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Nick.
Can you, Mark, give me an analysis of the scorecard? We celebrated the 4,000th home completed. It's not the 4,000th under EDC.
It's the 4,000th under EDC, apart from the 298 that were in Springhead Park when we first started. So it's one of the public questions this time. We've always included the initial homes in Springhead Park because they were part of the new developments. They're obviously residents as part of the community. When we might look at business plan, corporate plan numbers, obviously those go across different timescales. But yeah, essentially it's 4,000 since EDC was created in 2015, and that 4,000. Sorry, that includes the 290 that was pre-2015. Sorry, Nick.
Of the ones that we have consented,
Yes.
it's a subtraction from.
The only ones that we didn't consent was phase 1 in Castle Hill, and that was 150 that Dartford consented before we started. Every other phase, I believe, it consented, apart from the 290 at Springhead Park and the 150 at Castle Hill. I know random data. I think that's
It's good because it answers a really important question from my point of view.
okay, good.
I now understand the quality of that number.
Anything we can do to rain on your parade, we'll do.
Yeah. Yes, Simon.
Mark, it's a minor point, but what's the issue with getting these allotments and community garden completed over at Springhead Park? Because, again, it's all about community assets and making sure that community assets are there for the community to benefit.
Yeah. To be honest, it doesn't really feel as though we're being given a proper reason. I think at Ebbsfleet Green there is a delay, and it's around site conditions. I was there the other day, and there's an issue about drainage, and they're struggling about planting. It doesn't seem to be the same issue at Springhead Park allotment, so we have escalated that within Countryside because from the information I've been given, it doesn't feel as though there's a proper reason why they're delayed.
We had a meeting with fairly recently newly appointed MD for Countryside in the patch came a couple of weeks ago and closed at that meeting. So he did undertake to take that away.
Good.
All right. Thank you. So just to, yes, Valerie.
Sorry, that's a little bit. I've forgotten which allotment was which. We've got two allotments. One has no water at all, which is a massive problem, as you can imagine, and the other has too much water, which also needs resolving. But the planning issue is a bit more complicated in that it is you access the allotment from a private road, which is a sort of cul-de-sac. It serves 4 houses, and there is a desire from the developer and the house owners that the trust should also contribute to the upkeep maintenance of the road. We do need to access it in order to get to the allotment. I don't quite know how that's going to be resolved, but it needs to be, because clearly it's an additional burden that would otherwise fall on the trust, which actually makes something like allotments far as well.
So how long is this piece of road?
Oh, off the top of my head, I don't know. It's short. It's effectively a cul-de-sac to full.
It can't be much expense in upgrading a short cul-de-sac.
That must be the Ebbsfleet Green site, I think, considering where that is. So, I mean, in terms of the planning obligation, we're expecting Red Road to be providing those, and then obviously, any discussion with the trust then around future maintenance would then be obviously a discussion for the trust to have with.
Can we, in your next update, can we just try and nail that to facilitate bringing these allotments into operation?
I can see what I can do. Yes,
thank you.
That would be great. Actually,
Great.
wearing both hats, it would be great.
People love
I'm not sure if I can
allotments.
resolve anything, but I'll certainly see what I can do.
Yeah. Be best if we resolved it as well.
So we'll try.
Great. And just to confirm, I think the 2023-24 completions at 680, which is a neat number now. I think we're confident in that.
Yeah,
That's a consecutive record housing completions delivery for the corporation. So the last 2 years can't go on definitely. At some point that will get down a little bit just because of the profile of the developments, but fantastic work. Thank you to all of our partner house builders who are active in the Development Corporation. That's against the backdrop of, not the easiest housing delivery nationally, but consecutive record years here in the Development Corporation. So well done, everyone. Mark, well done to your department for everything you've done to make that possible as well. I don't think there are any other comments. That is for information. Thank you very much. Ebbsfleet Living, Kevin.
Good afternoon, everyone. As usual, I'll take the people who've read and just follow the queue, highlight if that's okay. First of all, just to commend the Garden City Trust in the conclusion of the first year of the Community Fund. They met twice since the last EDC board meeting and concluded with about 24 grants this year. 10 of those which were made over the last 2 months. That was really commendable and shows a good uptake in the fund as we progress. The second thing we wanted to celebrate was our partnership with Blueprint Arts and the Cultural Exchange Culture Programme, which is a group of local residents who are interested in developing their own skills. We're successful in getting £80,000 grant from the Arts Council, which EDC will match fund over the next 3 years to help them build capacity locally. So that's great to see that continuing. The biggest event of the winter so far, or will be, with Winter Lights Festival, which we delivered with Cohesion Plus, which attracted over 1,500 people, despite the imminent storm and freezing temperatures. That was really commendable. That event is the 3rd year of it, and it's gone from 250 people up to 1,500 over that period. And Cohesion Plus have been a great partner in helping us with that. And finally, just to highlight the employment and skills work that Laura and my team has been leading on. In particular, the event for the National Apprenticeship Week, which had a 100% increase in attendance, was held at Wilmington Grammar this year. It's an event that moves across different schools in the North Kent, the Dartford Gresham area. So that was fantastic to see that. And again, full attendance in each of our employability programs, and a number of those people who've been attending those programs getting jobs directly from the facilitator, which again was really encouraging. And just to conclude from me, was, we had an outstanding action to look at the Flourishing Index, which board asked us to see how useful or relevant it might be to us evaluating our impact over time. So I have provided some detail on the Flourishing Index and compared it to what we're doing in terms of our own measurement tools currently, and sort of just to highlight and give you confidence that we feel we're covering similar things to the Flourishing Index, just in a slightly different way.
Kevin?
So happy to take any questions.
Board, any questions or observations? Busy as always. Yes, Simon.
No, I was really encouraged by the report, Kevin, and I think a couple of the highlights for me. I did watch the trailer on YouTube for the early career show.
Yeah.
The young lady who was talking about her experiences in terms of employability, employment opportunities here, and the learning that she'd achieved. So I think that was great, and look forward to the sort of full film coming out on that. And really encouraging to see the focus around cycling as well, and encouraging people to get their bikes out of the shed, so to speak, and to get them checked and working on the road. And then great that O'Halloran and O'Brien have taken on some of the people they enabled to do train through CSCS and SIMS as well. So I think it's some really encouraging events taking place and activities that have been generated within the Garden City. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Simon. Absolutely. Yes, Neil.
Just a thank you. I think I raised one of the points about the Flourishing Index, so thank you for looking into that.
Yeah.
And I'm reassured and encouraged that we're actually ahead of the game. We've been doing it, but just using different measures. So keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll continue to get good responses and
but it's very
flourishing.
Yeah, it was helpful to have those references, and we had one from last month as well, which we looked into. So it's good to learn from other places as well, and we'll probably do more as we progress to share that.
Great. Yes, Valerie.
My thanks as well. I think it's an absolutely fantastic report. I can never believe how much you deliver, relatively short or small resource. In terms of the trust, the community fund, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's really, really growing, getting momentum, getting more and more applications. And the thing that's lovely, one, they're great ideas, but two, they do genuinely reflect, completely different sections of the community, which is wonderful. Another thought on the last theme, the community board. There must be people there who are, really great citizens wanting to contribute, and they would potentially be planning committee members. I don't know whether we can target them literally, specifically, or not literally.
We did actually suggest some people who'd applied to be on the community board and didn't get on the board. We actually did, because that opportunity came slightly after that. So we did direct people to that. I think some did apply, but weren't successful.
Right, okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Just to clear, the Northfleet station site, which in fact board in the recent strategy day, we went up and had a look at. The 180,000, that's money from Arts Council England, is it? Which we're match funding, just to understand the money there?
Yeah, so the Place Partnership Fund comes from Arts Council England. It only looks at priority areas for arts and culture. So they give a grant to Gravesham. We are matching the grant, and Gravesham are matching the grant. So the 180, it's 60,000 specifically from the Arts Council. We match it, and
Okay. So it's 180 in total.
Yeah.
You know, we don't, okay, not 360. Yeah, we're not. Okay, got you. But and what do we think we'll be able to do with that?
So that's over a 3-year program. So the first phase that we're looking at in terms of Northfleet Station is just trying to consolidate the brief. That will just be a part of that funding. So the majority of the funding will be cultural programming and capacity building in Northfleet specifically, which is the target area for the program.
Okay, right, good, because we looked at that site and you know, it's still protected for Crossrail, but you know, it's a priority to bring it back into some kind of use for the community there. All right, thank you very much. Any other comments, board? No? That's noting. Great work as always. Thank you very much. All right, Simon, Environmental Programme 2024-25. And we have a decision on this one.
Good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, this is the annual report that provides a brief overview of the projects that have been completed over the last year, 2023 to 24, and then sets out a proposed programme of projects to be developed 24-25 with a proposed Ardell budget of up to 140,000. So yeah, we're seeking board approval for that figure, assuming everybody's read the short report. So invite questions, Chair.
Thank you, Simon. Any observations, I guess, particularly on the focus areas?
There's one point of clarification. I'm not familiar with the soft landings framework. So I don't know whether you could say a little bit more about that.
Sure.
And what impact that will have the environmental sustainability manager having undertaken that training.
Yes, so soft landings framework has actually been around now for 15 years. So it developed in a partnership by government and industry, and its intention was to close the performance gap between the way projects are used in reality and how they are modelled and designed in the design process. And the key kind of point is the handover between the construction of the site and the handover and the briefing of the people that are going to run the project afterwards. But it extends right back to how you design a building or even a landscape for that matter, and how you think about how it's going to run, be managed and monitored once it's operating, basically. So it's an industry acknowledged system, and it's actually, we embedded it into the Sustainable Performance Framework, which board approved back in September for our own projects. And so to facilitate our own development managers to embed that into our projects, Kelly went off on a training program so she can now support the development teams in embedding that approach.
And I presume the Ebbsfleet green map will be green and blue. Or is it just looking at greenness?
It's just looking at greenness. So it's looking at green infrastructure specifically. So it's quite an interesting and innovative project. So it's a digital map, public facing. It'll be available on our website, and it maps all of the different habitats. So obviously that will go towards supporting the biodiversity net gain, but it also maps each individual tree across the garden city, and people will actually be able to, the members of the public will be able to actually click on a tree, identify the tree, and they can even report a problem with the tree that then comes through to the responsible managing authority.
What would it take to include the blue infrastructure?
I mean, the blue infrastructure is included as a habitat.
Right, okay, it is.
It is, but yeah, so it's included as a habitat typology. Should clarify that. Also, sustainable urban drainage systems are also included on the mapping as well.
Okay, good.
Yes, Neil. Sorry, was Nick first? Nick, did you want to come in?
You tell us about water, Simon, and Whitecliff Lake.
I can, yeah.
That going to be permanently drained? Does it receive surface water? What lessons does it tell us about Blue Lake potentially? And is your 30,000 in matched by Henley Camland? Just generally more.
Sure.
It's a big lump of your ask.
It is. So yeah, Whitecliff Lake actually sits below the water table, obviously it being sitting in a quarry. So part of it is actually water coming from that situation, but also surface water as well. So all the surface water in the quarry drains into the lake as well. And at the moment, a huge amount of water is now pumped into the Thames on a daily basis. And that water isn't necessarily potable water, so we don't believe it's able to be treated to be reused as potable water, but we do think it could be potentially reused elsewhere in the Garden City. So that project is to explore the different uses that could be used for, and then how it would be distributed, and to identify some indicative costs for that. There is a potential benefit for Henley Camland, in that Henley Camland are currently pay fees to pump that water into the Thames. So there would be a saving potentially on that fee if that water was used elsewhere. At the moment, we haven't approached Henley Camland to support that particular project. So that
Pump to prevent flooding, or just keep it from stagnating?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, so it has to be pumped into the Thames to prevent it from flooding.
That's all right. Good idea to try and use it more pressure source. Use it more effectively.
Right. Good point. Neil.
Thank you, Simon. The question for the other Simon. Annual travel monitoring. Good idea, and it might tell us what difference fast track makes when it comes along. But what I'm really interested in is, what are we going to use the data and the information that is gathered for? Because you say here it will allow us to update the carbon model and generate a report, but what else will it allow us to do, which actually is not about producing another report which tells us something else, but about making a difference to something that we can influence? How can it be used for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have in the report really focused on that aspect, the carbon reporting aspect, but having assessed the monitoring of existing planning applications that's already ongoing, we identified there's a gap there in terms of the ongoing monitoring. And so this project fills that gap by providing a more fine-grained understanding of journeys within the Garden City area. So it allows us to understand in a much more detailed way where those trips are happening. And so not only will that be helpful from a carbon reporting point of view, but actually for the first time understand really in a much more detailed way how people are travelling around the Garden City, and we can start to use that in a whole range of ways. So we can test, the public transport routes, for example, and how people are kind of linking through to those, walking and cycling routes, and testing that against the modelling that we've already undertaken. So actually, it's going to be useful in a number of different ways, not just the carbon reporting.
Good, because then it can be used to influence future decisions on pedestrian routes, cycle routes, public transport. Because the information you're going to get, it seems to me, is different to the planning application stage. Because at the planning application stage, you've got a transport consultant seeking to predict where people are going to go without knowing, where this actually gives you information about how they're going. So you could use it also to test reports that go in with planning applications, and to use that. But if it's publicly available, then the consultants can use it as well. So I think there are quite a lot of use. I mean, it's not a vast sum of money, but it could provide some really useful data.
So the intention, it would be a perennial rather than annual, if you like, that you'd get data following year, and it'd be the same, you'd be ongoing.
We were proposing every two years, but also to consider the introduction of major new transport services, linking into that as well, so we can assess the impact of those services.
Just the value would seem to be also in sort of observing over time, so repeating it every period is appropriate.
Yeah.
This is the particular year in question.
This is just for next year, yeah, but the intention is every 2 years was the original thinking.
All right, board. So we have a decision. We're being asked to approve federal funding of 140,000, inclusive of that, for delivering the programme 2024-25 as outlined in the paper. Is everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
Great. Thanks very much, Simon. Thanks for the hard work. All right, that then brings us on to, well, Paul and Jen. I don't know who's going to be.
I think we'll do a double act. That's
double
okay.
act. Okay, right. Development Infrastructure and Enabling Works report, part 1.
Well, given they come up first, if I cover development project, then I'll hand over to Paul. So I'll take the paper as read as ever, but just a couple of highlights to pull out. Specifically at 3.2 and 3.3, which is that we have now completed the REBA Stage 1 design process for the infrastructure required to service the first phase of development Ebbsfleet Central. So that's now back to the team for review, and cost updates are going on alongside that. So that's a really big initial milestone since that design team was appointed.
Can I jump in there? So the area that we're looking at, how big is that area?
It's if anyone knows the site, so it's car parks A and B, the two main car parks that you drive through up towards the station. That's what we call phase 1, that whole area there.
Yeah, right.
And at 3.3, just to note that we've been starting to plan ahead for our outline business case for that phase 1 infrastructure. And we've been setting up, thanks to Lucy and her team, 2 working groups. So firstly, a re-establishment of the Cross Whitehall group that we had previously that helped us through the initial acquisition and the strategic outline case for phase 1, but also a working group with the sort of experts at DLUC that the case needs to be reviewed by. So we've had initial meetings with both of those and now have a sort of a programme of meetings set up over the next 3 or 4 months ahead of the outline. So we've been grateful to the department for their support with that.
How many individuals are active in those 2 groups?
So the Cross Whitehall group has representation from the department, from EDC, from the Department for Transport, because obviously the critical link with the lease, and also the Infrastructure Projects Authority, and of course Treasury themselves as well, given the case will need to go to them. And then at the DLUC level, these are the subject matter experts across sort of legal, commercial, the economists, finance, and all the other disciplines that are part of that review.
Okay.
And then the only other thing, just to note, obviously from a Blue Lake perspective, board members will know that the strategic outline case that we've put together following the reset work is being presented in part 2, and following the approval of the strategic outline case for Grove Road at the meeting last month, that has now been submitted to the department for its approval. I'll hand to Paul.
All right, thank you, Jen. Before we go, any comments on Jen's segment there? You get off lightly, Jen. All right, Paul.
Thanks, Simon. Good afternoon, all. So take the report as read, just picking up some of the key highlights and some changes in the period since the report was put together. So Springhead Bridge, we continue our journey for KCC adoption. We had a further snagging list issued recently, which we're in the process of ironing out. We have responded to KCC on those items. The major element of that is some questioning over some road surfacing around the new traffic light signals, which we are getting inspected by pavement engineer and by Balfour Beatty, the contractor, to conclude.
So do we have like a target date for this? Are we all working, pulling towards a certain date?
Yeah, certainly September this year, subject to the resolution of the road issues and the extent of those road issues once they've been inspected by the pavement engineer and by the contractor.
Yeah.
What are the road issues?
Sorry, Simon?
Road issues? What?
Road issues is some degradation of the road surface, particularly the anti-slip surface on the main route down to Thames Way. But it's in hand. We've responded to KCC on the majority of the queries.
Yeah.
It's just those 2 we're awaiting our Balfour Beatty site inspection to get their opinion as to whether it's a defect or not.
Okay, so there's going to be some to and fro on whether or not it's a defect and remediation work necessary for
That's correct. That's correct.
Right.
And we're in the process of understanding what worst case scenario is, and then obviously when we've got all the information from the pavement engineer and from the contractor, we can then respond formally on the road issue to KCC.
Great. Eric.
I was just going to say, and thanks for that I'm on Haruna's case now once a week on this.
Brilliant.
Chasing her up about it and getting it resolved.
Brilliant. Yeah, great. It's one of those things like fast track. It would be nice to
Get it done.
bring this one to a conclusion. All right. Thanks for all the hard work on that. Paul, please carry on. Yeah.
Thank you. Electricity supply. So we're very close to concluding the variation to the contract with UKPN following HMT's approval of funds back end of last year, and liaising closely with our colleagues in Ebbsfleet Central with regards to the location of the substation and the cable routing. That's very, very close to being concluded, which will be a good positive result as well. The Fast Track Beam Tunnel, again, we continue to stay very close to our KCC kind of colleagues with regards to the Fast Track Tunnel project and the procurement of the contractor, following the news of Balfour Beatty's withdrawal. KCC have advised that they are considering other options outside of the Eastern Highways Alliance, which was the framework they were originally considering, and looking to make a decision summer/autumn of this year to enable a start on site early 2025, with the completion still being programmed by KCC for mid-2026. Our fast track road network will be complete by late 2025, and we meet very regularly with the developers through Whitecliffe who are all bought into that overall programme. We have obviously spoken about the temporary fast track service already. There are two key challenges which we are working very, very hard to resolve with KCC, and yes, we will advise on that once we have a conclusion to that work that we're currently doing.
All right, Paul, thank you. Board, any comments? Some good progress on some of those things, Nick.
Can I go back to the wastewater treatment?
Yes.
So there is, it was a step too far to do a replacement.
Yes.
They're now, Southern Water is now reviewing the extra odour control issue. So that's basically saying, if you want better smells than we are statutorily, greater smell reduction than we are statutorily obliged to do, then you have to pay for it. That's the essence of what they're doing. And who is advising us? What sort of target do we think we're aiming for? And are we thinking about some form of thought process towards making the overall wastewater treatment plant look less like a wastewater treatment plant, and so that residents can feel that they're living in a nicer place?
Yeah, sure. We take a step backwards before I sort of get to the point, if you like, Nick. So Southern Water at this moment in time are working up their preferred option, their preferred design option for the infrastructure upgrade works, which they are actually taking to their board tomorrow for final sign-off. Once that final design has been signed off by their board, we will then recommence our discussions with KCC with regards to the extra odour control, which will be essentially a bolt-on to their capacity upgrade works, with a view to maintaining an odour contour that we have relayed to Southern Water. Timescales in regards to that, probably 3 to 6 months in terms of working up that extra odour control. But that would be done in conjunction with Southern Water working up their detailed design, assuming that gets approved tomorrow. So it's an efficient way of us incorporating our design within their overall works. In terms of enhancements, the only enhancement, if we go ahead with this, will be the extra odour control. There'll be covers to the existing tanks, the circular tanks that are in there, but other than that, there's no aesthetic improvement to the facility that's already there.
And the advisor, Paul?
Advisor, we're taking advice when we get to that stage from Pinsent Mason, from a technical and a legal perspective, and we've also got a resource within Arcadis that will give us a second sounding board.
All right.
Because I understand that Pinsons will give you the technical statutory obligation that they have to discharge, which will be some formula, which I don't want to think about. But we need a really fabulous consultant a very technical area, just to say, well, if you want it better, this is the kit you need to be paying for.
It's a nice from a technical and from a legal.
Okay, so they do that as well, not just the sort of.
This particular consultant does, yes.
Okay. So.
And we're double checking that with Arcadis. So we've got like a belt and braces approach.
Sorry to drag the board through this. SW's board is deciding what they have to do and what their capex, that obligation.
They are deciding on the preferred option that Southern Water technical team have chosen upon. They are deciding whether to approve or not approve that design solution, the upgrade
And the
works.
funding.
Correct.
I'm interested in not having spent enough time walking around that area as to what the team thinks, how significant this issue is, how much improvement we need to make to improve the lives of our existing residents and to make it an attractive place to be developing houses from our point of view.
I think,
What is the scale? What's the scale of the issue? How much do we really feel we need to improve it, as opposed to what their extra over is? Because presumably they're statutory compliant at the moment, and yet everybody says it's relatively unbearable. Therefore, how urgent is this for our existing residents, and how much money do we need to spend to make it better? You're not
Just
what
yeah,
you're employing people.
absolutely, Nick. Just to explore that, I live about a mile away from a Thames Water treatment plant, but it's intermittent. Sometimes the smells that you get there, depending upon, you're always trying to pin them down about what's causing it. And then sometimes, is it prevailing wind? Is it where they are in the process? Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you get a slightly worse day. It's like, but it's not like a baseline smell. What are we dealing with there?
I was going to say that in terms of the impact on the local residents and the area generally, it is focused around the owner. You can drive down Thames Way, and actually you wouldn't know visually that there was a wastewater treatment works there. So we've already explored the possibility of a brand new state-of-the-art plant, and that the cost is not ridiculous. So we've very much focused on the owner. We have we've looked at it from an odour contour point of view, which is the sensible way to do it, I think. So, within these odour contours, where's the impact for existing residents? Where's the impact for Central? Where's the impact for Blue Lake and our aspirations there? So we then are looking for, we will be looking for Southern Water to come up with a solution for those extra over measures, which get the smells down to within acceptable odour contours for those uses. So that's, we're approaching it, I think, from that sort of scientific, objective way, because I think it's the only way to just do it, really. But it's like you say, Simon, I think with any source like that, it does tend to be intermittent. Wind direction and then just general climatic conditions clearly make an impact. And anecdotally, you could go up to Springhead Park one day and you can smell it quite strongly. Another day you go up there, you know there at all. It's really is.
Yeah, I had a site in Beddington and we knew we couldn't take the bank or a tenant down on certain days, and you tried to work out what the science was.
Yeah, I found it difficult to pin down exactly what is.
It can be measured, was it? Is it a subjective thing?
No, it's
measurable. So you can actually, and then the extra over, we know you know what you'd be getting in terms of your quantification.
Yes, within reason. Yes, we have an odour contour map that.
I suppose something can, as I say, be objectively measured. No, it's not the residents, not complaints based.
That's correct.
So sorry, Paul, but is it something which is capable of significantly addressing through the treatment process that they're running?
Yes.
Yeah, as opposed to, something more dramatic from a capex perspective.
Yes. I mean, I don't know the technicalities of it, but basically it adds something to the treatment process that reduces the odour, essentially.
Yeah. That's my experience.
The majority of the complaints come when there's over pumping in action. So there's a failure in the system somewhere, there's a backup at the treatment works, which means they then have to tanker effluent away. That's when we tend to get the majority of the complaints.
So in reality, they need to operate the thing appropriately before they come cap in hand to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's always going to be the what ifs if there is a malfunction in the system somewhere.
Again, that's on them.
That is upon them, yes.
Okay, I think it would be good for us to have a clear understanding about what the issue is and that which is within their responsibility. So we don't get drawn into, I'm sure we're not going to, but we don't get drawn into trying to create a solution for this, which is an expense to the public taxpayer, when in reality it's an operational issue primarily on their part.
It's always been one of the sort of main fundamental issues around us intervening here is actually what should they be doing anyway? And that's clearly true with the sort of the expansion and the environmental, and it's going to be true with this as well. So we've been taking quite a lot of advice around that, what are their obligations, etc. And absolutely, we know there's a line there where we should not be going over. They have to do what they are required to do.
Great.
Yeah, I'm well sure we don't do that. That's why we've got the independent assessors involved.
Great. Don't have an excellent record generally. All right. So thank you very much for that. Had a good debate there. Thank you. Yes, Jeremy.
I'm very quick on just on that last issue, the anecdotally, we had the problem at the bridge. You might remember exactly the same issue. And I will tell you what they told you anecdotally, which was that what we do creates smells. And that's why we locate where we locate. But you insist on building houses next to them. And therefore the problem is effectively yours, because what we do creates smells. And if it's your problem if you want to put houses there. That's what they told us. Fundamentally, two issues I want to raise quickly. First of all is wayfinding. I don't want to get into, but this is a very detailed issue, but can I just give a warning about the signpost, totems and lecterns? It's quite a big industry, this now, and there seems to be a sort of a convention and a bit of a momentum building around very similar designs of totems around places. This very modern upright thing and glass and I can tell you they are failing at quite a big rate in Dartford, and I think we just need to be very alive. Every sign, a wayfinding contractor I've ever had, consultant, has said, these finger posts are guaranteed always to be pointing in the right direction. These flags are guaranteed never to come apart. These totems are guaranteed to be vandal proof. And every single one has gone wrong. Every single flag is flagging. Every single totem has been smashed at some point or other. And I just think we need to be, it's ironic because the stuff that really works in Dartford is the Victorian stuff, and which doesn't move, doesn't change, doesn't get vandalised. So I just think we need to be, I mean, it's nothing for us to get detail involved in, but yes, just because something looks shiny and bright, frankly, it fails quite a lot. And I think it's better to be more resilient.
It's a good one.
The second thing is about mobility as a service, which I see is cropping up here.
Yeah,
we were going to do, if you remember, a little bit of a common sense check on the benefits to local people here for it. I know there was a big drive inside KCC for it. I know they're very, very keen on it. But the truth is, there was a concern that it was reinventing the wheel for what is a fairly sophisticated transport environment here anyway, with fast track and apps and all the rest of it. And really, it might actually prove to be a bit of a white elephant here. I'm not suggesting it will. I think the scheme itself is really good. I've seen it and it's improving rapidly from its early start, which wasn't impressive. But the truth is, I think we need to rationalise whether, before we invest, whether our systems and what people are using, because they are commuting largely in that direction, is actually going to be a great investment. So if you just reassure me that that's happened, we might even perhaps get Mass to come back and talk to us so we can understand what the thing actually means. It seemed to me to be doubling up on a lot of commercially available apps, but perhaps it's moved on. I just don't know.
We're yet to do that sort of real in-depth scrutiny.
Fine.
I think it's fair to say to make sure that we do.
Yes, this pointed to us. Almost KSC are looking to EDC for future funding, so I didn't want us to sneak through without us actually seeing what it's spent on. That's cool. It may be really good, but I just haven't seen it.
All right, Jeremy, some good points there. Thank you very much indeed. Paul, I think we've had a good debate.
Yes, thank you. Can I just, is there a colleague in Dartford that we could speak to regarding those totems?
Jeremy?
Oh, yes. Is it Peter? I'm not even going to accept the embarrassment of you knowing the officer and me not knowing.
I just made
It
that
could
up.
well be Peter. I'll try and get it for you.
Drop me a line, thank you.
Yeah, I would do.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be Sonia, actually. It'd be Sonia, wouldn't it?
Most things seem to end up with something, so that's fine.
Yeah, Sonia, right, but
Yeah.
Sonia, okay, thank you.
Basically, don't put them places where people can, trades can reverse into them and then they're all bent.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you very much for all of that. That is for noting. Thank you. Then Gerard, we've got updated procurement and contract management policies.
Thank you, Chair. The paper in front of you is seeking board approval for the two updated policies, the procurement policy and contract management policy. Particularly procurement policy, it's gone through numerous iterations, rewrites, redrafts. I'm pleased to say that we've now come up with a final version and endorsed by the ARAC, our Audit and Assurance and Risk Committee, and it is now in front of you seeking approval to be implemented, as is the contract management policy.
Great. Fred, as chair of ARAC, you're comfortable with it?
Yeah, we've had a long series of discussions over that. On these, they are, I think, having significantly improved and provide a very good basis for both procurement and contract management. So we're very happy to endorse them.
Great. That's assurance we're looking for. Board, any comments? Yes, Barry.
So I had a couple on the procurement contract. It's sort of silent on how the framework opportunities are put together. And very often, for example, they are so onerous in terms of the demands that it may exclude smaller practices, innovative practices. People who are 40 under 40, if you look at the architecture, we're looking for really great results here. And I just don't understand how the framework process works, because it just doesn't explain it really in this document, and indeed how we make sure that we are genuinely opening up to the market whilst at the same time managing risk, to make sure that we've got insurance cover and guarantee and so on. But it's a universal problem. But somewhere like here, it would be such a shame to exclude the upcoming practices.
We're not talking in this instance about our own framework. So we're talking about accessing frameworks that exist and are managed by other people.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways that we use to market. I think there are two schools of thoughts. One of which is actually using a third-party framework has lots of benefits because suppliers have been tested and so on. But I think, Valerie, your point about yes, that's okay, but they can also be restrictive, and they may not offer you the suppliers that you particularly want to access for certain types of services. So we've had a long discussion about that, and I'm very much of the view that procuring managers, we as an organisation, should examine the options of external frameworks and use them where that makes sense, and that we're confident that the suppliers on there can deliver the service that we want and they're the right suppliers. But they are not the be all and end all, and where we think there's a better route to achieving what we want to achieve, then we should not use it. We will run a process ourselves, either request for quotes or a full on TT. So it is horses for courses, but it's about accessing third party frameworks rather than.
Okay, thank you. So our frameworks, maybe we can come back to another time, but that certainly answers the question on this policy. And the other one was around the contract management policy and the annex about safe harbours. Because items B and C, so additional work suppliers may become necessary, they can't exceed more than 50% of the base contract. And similarly with C, modification of contract brought about by circumstances were unforeseen, again, can't be more than 50% of the value of the original contract. But it also says that you can have these cumulative variations. In other words, it seems to me that there's no safeguard at all around public money with regard to the safe harbours.
Definitely a strange one, but that's in practice.
Pardon?
It's strange, but that's how it works in practice. Each one isn't cumulatively added up. Each instance is taken as the 50% of the original base, and you can have numerous of them as long as they fit those.
So how do we manage the contracts then? I mean,
so we had a contract modification discussion at AREC today, which outlined our process and procedure on how we will manage this, and we'll be reporting Bs and Cs to AREC on as they occur.
They would be very less likely to be used as a safe harbour. Those particular ones that you've read from. The one that we do use for very good reasons is the first of the safe harbours, but there are criteria and parameters. It's acceptable to use those, which we have to comply with the regs. The point you make, and I think in doing quite a bit of work around this over the last few months, there's some sort of background cases and around this, and it isn't, from what I've read, it's not hugely clear. There is but I think so. Firstly, they'll be used very, very rarely by us. Secondly, they will be being reported to AREC. So I think there'll be full transparency there. We were relying on those safe harbors.
Just to add as well, B and C specifically require a notice to be put up on publicly if you use them. Yes, there's a safeguard there as well. And I say, they have only been used in a couple of very, very unique instances on contracts to date by us, particularly around, say, the SSI, and we needed to do some work immediately on something we could not have foreseen. And therefore, you could use it. But yeah, they've hardly been used for that reason, as Ian said, because they're very rare in.
And if we think it's unreasonable, presumably is there exit strategies in the contract that's just a sort of understood mechanism if it truly exceeds, where we thought we were going with the particular.
So these would be used where we want to modify a supply coming to us and demanding something additional. This would be where we're wanting to modify the contract.
Thank you, sir. I had misunderstood that. All right, but okay, but there's a process in place to manage it, is what you're saying. And notification. Thank you very much.
All right. So we're being asked to approve the procurement policy, contract management policies here. The board happy with that? Great. Thank you very much indeed. Then, as always, we've got some excellent questions from the public. We will be publishing our response to those on our website today. Keep the questions coming, keep us on our toes, hold us to account. That then brings us to the end of part one business for today. We have our next board meeting on the 8th of May. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the 8th of May. Thank you.